Hi, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar on micronutrients. My name is Sydney Schindel, and I will be walking you through InfoFit's webinar tonight. So first and foremost, thank you very much for taking the time to join us here. I know it is the day after New Year's, and I hope everyone is ready to get this year going. And when it comes to tonight's content, I hope you guys find it useful. We've heard a lot in the past about macronutrients, but I think now more than ever is time to focus on some of the micronutrients and understanding a little bit more even about what that means. So before we get into tonight's content, I just wanted to quickly introduce myself in case you guys don't know who I am. My name is Sydney Schindel, and I am a certified nutritional practitioner. So I am what you can call a holistic nutritionist or a nutritionist. And prior to my work in the realm of nutrition, I was a national level athlete in the realm of synchronized swimming. After that, I went on to be the head coach of a synchronized swimming club for a very long time. And all of this experience really sparked my interest in sports nutrition, as well as in the realm of coaching. So now I kind of mesh the two together, and I teach at InfoFit, as well as other post-secondary institutes around the city in Vancouver to share my knowledge of nutrition with personal trainers, workplace wellness institutes, things like that. So why tonight's webinar is so important to me is because once upon a time when I was also an athlete, I focused so much on, let's say, that zoomed out picture. And that's really an image I want you guys to think about tonight. I want you guys to first and foremost picture your little world and take a step back and kind of, strap yourself in and take a seat on kind of like a rocket ship and find yourself in outer space, looking at your planet from a zoomed out perspective. And from this perspective, we can kind of look at our plate or our, let's say, nutritional goals as looking down at the earth, your earth beneath you. And we tend to focus a lot on that idea of the macros. And I was once one of those people where if I focused on my macros, I counted my calories, that really made all the difference. I knew that if I could count my calories, focus on those macros, everything would kind of fall in line. And that worked for some time. And I'm sure we've all been in that place or seen clients that have had that same experience where they, start to focus on nutrition and they really start to focus on having potentially a calorie deficit or even just counting their calories in the first place. And then we realize that that kind of caps out. And then they start to focus on those macronutrients, our proteins, our carbohydrates, and our fats. And we start to see great success there when we start to really count that and focus on it. But even that is not enough. And tonight's webinar is really going to explain to you how, even if a client, or maybe for yourself, if you are counting your macros, that's going to be a great first place to start. At least you're aware of the food that you're eating, but to reach your goals and to achieve, let's say, physical feats, or to achieve the aesthetics that you're looking for in your body, the macronutrient counting is going to have a cap-out point as well. So tonight's talk, we're going to walk you through what exactly micronutrients are, because I'm sure we've all heard the term micronutrients before. We're going to walk through that, but we're also going to walk through a little bit more than that. We're going to talk about why counting those macros aren't quite enough. We're going to explain a little bit about how the secret really lies in the micronutrients and how they contribute to overall health, wellness, and performance. I'm also going to share with you where to find them in food and which foods are particularly high in micronutrients. Now, I don't have enough time to go through all of the micronutrients per se tonight, but I will select a couple to share with that with you. Finally, I will get into how many micronutrients that you guys need and focus in on a couple that probably need immediate attention for most people. All right, that being said, let's get into this. So we probably all heard of micronutrients before. We've heard of vitamins and minerals, right? These are going to be nutrients that are required for our body to function, right? It goes beyond the idea of energy calories, right? Calories in, calories out to help us move and keep burning fuel. It goes far deeper than that, right? That next level, if we're looking at that zoomed out world, would be those macronutrients, right? We can see protein, carbohydrates, and fats, those being building blocks, energy, as well as quick energy fuel for the body. But what lies a little bit deeper are the micronutrients. And these guys are actually quite essential for our body to function day in and day out. While they don't actually make calories, they don't actually have a caloric content, they are integral to how we perform daily, how we live, eat, breathe, run, sleep, you name it. Vitamins and minerals are actually what are allowing us to do this. We have some, sorry, the slides aren't moving for you guys. Sorry about that. Let's try that again. Can you guys see the slides if I hold them at this angle? Sorry about that. My apologies on the slides not moving. I'll have to keep it in a format like this so you guys can see the slides. Now let's keep going through it. All right, you guys have not missed anything from the slides, I absolutely promise. And these will be sent out after, I do believe. So let's keep going on this idea of micronutrients. First and foremost, back to that zoomed out world. We can see protein, carbs, and fats. Now, what lies within them, if we are eating proper foods, are our micronutrients. We need these in order to function. Our body does not make these vitamins and minerals. We actually have to obtain them from the diet in order to bring them into the body for our body to use them. Now, I have a little star here beside the body does not make them because we actually do make some of the vitamins, not in extreme quantities, but our gut bacteria, if our gut bacteria is functioning well, can actually make a few of these vitamins for us. But for the most part, we actually do need to obtain these micronutrients from the diet that we eat on a regular basis. Another thing that's important to mention is we talk a lot about the term vitamins and minerals, or people will say, oh, I'm taking my vitamins, or I need my vitamins, but they're not actually the exact same thing. There is a little bit of a difference in how they're formed. So the main key difference between vitamins and minerals are that vitamins are organic and minerals are inorganic. And what that doesn't mean is that one is found in the organic section of the grocery store and the other one isn't. What that means simply is that vitamins are organic and that they can actually be broken down and assimilated. We talk a lot about the term assimilation in nutrition because it goes beyond the word digestion, right? So you can eat something, but it doesn't actually mean that you're digesting it and absorbing it and assimilating it, which is where the key important factor of vitamins and minerals actually take place. But the cool thing about vitamins is that they are organic. We can break them down and then we can assimilate them, which I'm going to show you on the next slide. When it comes to minerals, these guys are inorganic. And what that means is that they will not break down. They are minerals, the same way that you can see minerals on the side of the road if there's like a deposit of some sort of mineral, if you're out by a mine. There are some dietary minerals that we require as well. I'm sure we've all heard of things like iron and maybe sulfur, maybe even iodine, calcium, magnesium. There are dietary minerals that we also need in the body. Now, while we can still assimilate these if we're digesting things accordingly, we also need to take into consideration that once we're done with these minerals, they actually leave the body in the same format that we found them. So that's what we mean by inorganic. They maintain their structure. One of the key players of where we can find this happen is that if we're looking at iron, and you were to, let's say, zoom in very closely on a molecule of iron, there's going to, or a molecule of, let's say, our red blood cells. If we're looking at a red blood cell, down at the very, very center is actually going to be a unit of iron, and the rest of the cell kind of forms around it. So it stays in that form, and once we're done with it, once we're done with that red blood cell, it will not change shape. We'll actually try and recycle that iron and use it again. It's pretty cool. Now, why are these micronutrients so important? We talk a lot about the protein, carbs, and fats, and understanding that if we eat this specific amount of those, we can, lose weight or gain muscle or have enough energy to get us through our day and not feel hungry. But that can cap itself out, because if we're not focusing on the quality of our macronutrients, let's say we're doing like an if it fits your macro style of diet and we're eating at McDonald's every day, or let's say we're eating out at fast food restaurants and not really caring about the quality of those macronutrients, we're going to be missing out on those micronutrients, which is what I mean by quality, that are actually going to allow our bodies to create, let's say, new muscle tissue, or to create digestive enzymes to help us actually bring new food into our body, or they might actually interfere with how our mitochondria function. All of these things can happen if we don't have enough of those vitamins and minerals. So it's easy enough to say, oh yes, we need vitamins and minerals, but what exactly are they doing? Because they don't provide calories. These guys are actually going to be considered what we call cofactors and coenzymes. So our vitamins and minerals can also be seen as kind of helpers. And the term cofactor and coenzyme means that they're not actually giving us a direct supply of ATP, which, for those of you guys who might not be familiar, it's the energy currency of our bodies. While we are intaking calories, we're actually breaking down those calories. So let's say we have a piece of chicken that's come in. We're going to break down those calories into we're going to break down those calories into its individual pieces. So let's say we're going to break it down into individual amino acids and break that down even further to obtain our vitamins and minerals that are also found within that chicken, right? And then we're going to throw that all into a big cycle and a circle, kind of like a big washing machine, let's say, and out we're going to pop out ATP. That is the energy currency of our cell. So while the vitamins and minerals are not giving us the ATP, the protein is, they are actually going to be a compound that's going to facilitate the activity of us even obtaining that protein in the first place, right? So our vitamins and minerals aren't giving us calories or energy, but they're actually becoming enzymes or catalysts that are allowing us to actually unlock our food, or unlock the caloric potential or the ATP potential that's in our food. So you can kind of think about them as the flick of a domino, right? So they're going to be the one that's going to flick the domino of a whole reaction of things that's going to happen for us to actually use the energy that's unlockable in that protein. It's very cool. So as you can start to see that counting the macros that are empty, if we're only having empty macros on a daily basis, we're probably going to run out, or we're going to be low on some of these cofactors and coenzymes that can actually allow us to build new muscle cells, or to build new bone cells, all these different things. So this can actually slow down over time if someone is on that if it fits your macro style approach, and they're not really taking care of the quality of their macronutrients. Now, when it comes to requirements for vitamins and minerals, I will get to this later on as well, but it very much is depending on each individual person. So I'm going to save that for the end, but I'm sure we'll get lots of questions about that. And don't worry too much about knowing exactly how many vitamins and minerals you need right now. I will get into that later. But first and foremost, really start to picture how these guys are kind of like the cogs in the machine that allow the whole machine to function well. They're kind of invisible and you don't really see them, and we see more so that zoomed out picture that I was talking about. We see protein, carbs, and fats. These guys are kind of like the stage crew that are behind the scenes, allowing everything to happen. So we can also look at our micronutrients in a couple different ways. We can categorize them into essential and non-essential nutrients. So when it comes to the essential nutrients, these are nutrients that our body cannot make enough of, or we don't produce any of at all. So that would be our minerals, that would be quite a few of our vitamins, and that would also be things like our essential fatty acids. These guys are going to play a vital role in our health. There are also some non-essential nutrients. And these ones are interesting because, as I mentioned earlier, these ones can actually be made in the body. So things like biotin, also formerly known as B7, and vitamin K can actually be made from our healthy gut bacteria as part of like a byproduct of what they're able to create for us, so long as your gut is happy and healthy. And we could do a whole other talk about gut health here, but gut health does also play a role in how well we can actually absorb our vitamins and minerals in the first place. Other non-essential nutrients is actually cholesterol. So fun fact about cholesterol, and I think we're learning more and more about cholesterol as the years go on, but there's more coming to light about the fact that we need cholesterol. We can get dietary cholesterol, we can obtain cholesterol from the diet, but we also actually do make some in our liver because it's actually an essential component of our hormones, in particular our reproductive hormones. So these nutrients we can obtain from the diet, but we can also create in small amounts in the body. So to give you a longer list of those essential nutrients, I put this list together for you guys just to give you a general idea of what humans technically need to survive, right? So as trainers and as nutritionists or as for personal interest, if you're looking at what a human needs on their plate day in and day out, it looks a little something like this. Now, water obviously might not be a nutrient, but it's still essential. So I put that on the list because it's required for us to help assimilate nutrients. It's required for digestion. It's required for many different things. And then we can look at just the simple idea of calories, a potential for energy, right? We need X amount of calories in order to function day in and day out. This, however, is where a lot of people stop. They'll look at that idea of water plus calories equals happy human, or water plus macronutrient counting equals happy, healthy human who can reach their physical goals or their energetic goals, and that's it. But what I really want to share with you guys tonight is that this list goes so much deeper. Yes, you can function if we're looking at just those first two, the water and those calories or macronutrients, but to thrive and to actually obtain your goals or reach your goals in nutrition and wellness and in physical fitness, we also need to look at other things on the plate, those micronutrients. So we have to zoom in way further on our kind of personal planet here to look at things that are typically kind of overlooked, right? So we can look at those omega-3 fatty acids and omega-6 fatty acids, typically found in, fish, or we can find some in plant-based sources. We can also look at those vitamins that I'm going to be talking more about tonight. Vitamins A, C, D, E, K, and the whole array of B vitamins. And then about 16 to 20 dietary minerals. So these guys are also going to be considered essential in the same way that, yes, we need to obtain macronutrients from the food that we eat in order to function and have enough energy to get through the day. We also need these omega-3s and 6s and these vitamins and minerals in order to actually break down those proteins and fats and carbohydrates to make new cells, to create energy. These guys, remember, are the stage crew. While we don't see them when we're going to see a play, we see the main stars, we see the actors, like the protein, carbs, and fats dancing on stage. It's the vitamins and minerals that are doing all the legwork behind the scenes to allow that to actually happen. Pretty cool. So let's get into a little bit more detail about these micronutrients. First and foremost, we have our fat-soluble vitamins. I love fat-soluble vitamins. I could talk about them for a very long time, but I'll keep it short and sweet tonight. So for those of you guys who might not be aware, or maybe this is just a fun refresher for you, fat-soluble vitamins are vitamins A, E, D, and K. And the reason why we call them fat-soluble vitamins is because they're not soluble in water. So they travel through the body at a different rate in comparison to water-soluble vitamins that I'm going to get to next. They can actually be stored in the body for a longer period of time as well, which means that we can take breaks in terms of supplementation, which I'll get to later. But we also need to find them, we find them typically in animal-based sources because typically they're found in fat. Now, you will find vitamin K, or part of vitamin K vitamins in plant-based sources, but there are two different types of vitamin K. So I'll just jump into that really quickly to give you guys just a general overview of how cool all these vitamins are and how they're all so different. Vitamin K, K1 and K2 have different purposes. One is useful for blood clotting, where one is useful for bone building. And one we can find in a plant-based source, whereas the other we find in more animal-based sources. Vitamin A, retinol, true vitamin A, will be found in animal-based sources only. And when it comes to why it's so important, it's going to be very important for eyesight and growth and healing, as well as for fighting off infections. And this is true vitamin A. We'll find this in things like liver and cod liver oil and butter and egg and whole milk and dairy. Now, we can also find something called pre-vitamin A, or the provitamin A, which is going to be the precursor to vitamin A, which will turn into vitamin A if we have enough units of it and if we have enough of those enzymes coming into play. So once again, too, we can actually use those other vitamins and minerals to help kind of move these reactions around together. But you can see how if we were eating just a macro-based diet, we might run out of that and we might not even be able to make enough real vitamin A from our provitamin A sources. Provitamin A sources are going to be called carotenes, and that's where we find things like carrots, right? Anything that's like yellow or orange pigment. It's really cool in terms of how they work as an antioxidant. And then as we start to eat more and more of them, we can create units of real vitamin A. But all in all, they work together to help with eyesight, as well as helping healthy tissue and preventing illness. Vitamin E is going to be something else that's also functioning as an antioxidant. It doesn't get stored in the same way as the other fat-soluble vitamins, but very useful in terms of being useful as recycling other antioxidants. It does not get stored in the same way as other fat-soluble vitamins do. We actually burn through these stores quite quickly, and this one will be found more so in plant-based sources. Its key function is going to be an anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. And then finally, we have vitamin D. And vitamin D is a very interesting vitamin because it functions both as a vitamin and a hormone. So we can find vitamin D from the diet as well as from the sun, right? It's called the sunshine vitamin for a reason. And the interesting thing about it is that we can actually take sunlight and formulate or activate it into real active vitamin D3, but that requires other enzymes in the body coming from real food, as well as enough cholesterol and many other metabolic functions. So you can see how the lack of the other micronutrients could also kind of disallow this reaction to happen, as well as some genetic factors. When it comes to sources of vitamin D, aside from the sun, dietary sources would be things like salmon and sardines and cod liver oil, mackerel, lots of oily fish, as well as egg yolks. You will find some plant-based sources, but they're not the active form, and that would be in soy and mushrooms. So to activate it, we would require the enzyme to do so, which would, one, require micronutrients, and two, also require genetic predispositions to actually have that genetic trait. So when it comes to why these guys are so important to obtain from the diet, it's important to get these on a daily basis through foods that contain quality fats, as well as to eat them with high quality fats, because this will actually allow them to be absorbed and assimilated much more efficiently, because they do not travel well in water. They actually get packed up with fats and sent kind of through a cruise ship through your body, per se, to finally get to their final destination. So eating these foods in their real whole food form, or taking supplements that are fat-soluble vitamin based with fatty foods, will actually increase the absorption of these vitamins. When it comes to water-soluble vitamins, these guys are a little bit different from our fat soluble because they don't get stored in the same way. We know that we carry fat on the body, right? We know that that fat can stay there for years or for months, and it doesn't move as much as things that are water soluble do, right? So our fat stores, as well as our liver, can actually hold those fat soluble vitamins for quite some time. Whereas with our water soluble vitamins, we need to replenish these on a daily basis. Our water soluble vitamins are vitamins B1 through B17. They all do different things, but they're involved very much so in our stress response and anything to do with physical activity. They play key roles in how we create energy, how we're actually able to use our calories to create ATP and create movement and help our mitochondria create that energy for us. So because of that, they are going to be depleted when we are increasing our amount of exercise. Any type of strenuous physical activity will deplete our stores of these water-soluble vitamins more quickly, as well as stressful situations, because our body can also respond to stress by ramping up some of our metabolic functions, which can also decrease these vitamins. So basically, any physical exercise demand or any physical demand will actually ask our bodies for more requirements of these water-soluble vitamins. When it comes to where we lose them from, you can probably take a guess, but because they're water-soluble, we're going to lose them by any way that we are losing fluids, as you can see by this list. When it comes to sources of these vitamins, you're going to find these more so in plant-based sources. So vitamin C being the one that we all talk about and know about. Everyone knows to take vitamin C from oranges, but fun fact, you can find more vitamin C in 1 cup of red cabbage than you can in a whole orange. So vitamin C can hide in places that you might not be aware of. When it comes to uses of vitamin C, going to be very useful for supporting healthy adrenal function, helping to stimulate immune function, as we all know, and is very important for the maintenance of collagen and connective tissue. It should be replenished daily, and so should all of these water-soluble vitamins, because we will be going through our stores on a daily basis. So once again, going back to that idea of macros, it's not just enough to count those macros. We also have to count our micros. And when I mean counting your micros, I don't mean measuring them out and weighing out your micros, because that's not going to happen, but looking to see color, just like this picture on my slide here, looking to count, when you're counting your macros or looking at that plate, looking to see that there's color there too, because all of these colors are trying to show you things that are actually present in your food. So to give you an example of the shot that I've shown you here, we have spinach, we have broccoli, we have oranges, all containing a little bit of vitamin C. The orange color is also going to show you that there's some bioflavonoids there, as well as beta carotene, other things like that. You'll also see that dark leafy green, or like that dark green color, will also be a sign of specific antioxidants and vitamin contents, just to give you an idea of how you don't have to stop counting macros if you don't want to, but starting to count your micros by starting to count how many colors you see on your plate. When it comes to other vitamins, I don't have time to go through all the Bs, but fun fact, you can find your B vitamins in many different places. We'll say B6, very important for many metabolic functions. It's going to be B6, also known as pyridoxine, is involved in more bodily functions than any other nutrient. Very important. It actually acts as basically the flick of the domino, or the catalyst, in creating a whole bunch of neurotransmitters, helping us to increase iron absorption, all these different things. And each of these B vitamins actually have their own purpose in terms of metabolic functions. So where you can find this in food is in carrots and chicken and peas and sunflower, pretty much everywhere. We find this one in quite a few foods, but it is very important, which is why you can see it in so many different types of food. We also have B12, which I will say for the end because, surprise, surprise, that is one of the most common micronutrient deficiencies out there these days. And last on our list of our micronutrients that we can take a further dive into are our minerals. So once again, minerals are not going to give us a true source of energy. Just like our vitamins, they don't supply us with calories. While our vitamins and minerals are found in our calories, right, in our protein, carbs, and fats, they are not providing us with the calories, no ATP. But they, once again, like vitamins, minerals are going to be essential to metabolism. They're going to be essential to how we can actually break down our food and use it, how we can build new muscles, how we can breathe, blink our eyes, sleep, you name it. There's an array of minerals out there, 16 to 20 dietary minerals, depending on who you're asking. But all of them play specific purposes in regulating body processes. And what I mean by body processes is anything from digestion, like zinc, and immune function, like zinc, iron for how we can build red blood cells. We can also look at magnesium for how we regulate muscle function and muscle contractions and relaxation. We can look at iodine playing a key role in thyroid health. We can look at calcium and magnesium together as part of a bone building combination. They all help to regulate body processes. And interestingly enough, while they play such important roles in how we create new tissue and you name it, anything to do with metabolism, none of them are made in the body. We actually have to take these minerals from the soil that we are growing our plants in and the water that we're drinking and digest and assimilate them in order to actually have our body function accordingly. So all minerals are made from the earth and are taken in from the plants, from the soil. And then if we're eating animals, those animals are then eating plants that are also allowing them to obtain those minerals as well. So minerals don't get as much discussion as vitamins do, but once again, too, they play a huge role in the fact that they are the basic building blocks of all cells. But in particular, they play a very important role in blood and nerves and muscle tissues. So if you think about this and take a step back, think about your body as a living thing. Everything is constantly being built up and broken down. Even your cells are constantly being broken up and broken down and built up on a daily basis, and bones and teeth as well. You're not stagnant. You are not the same you that you were 5 years ago. Thanks to all these metabolic functions, your body keeps building things up and breaking things down. And to do that, we require these minerals and these vitamins. When it comes to minerals, they can't be destroyed by heat, but they are very susceptible to being lost due to different types of farming practices. So we'll get to that on the next slide there. When it comes to how we divide minerals, we divide them into two different categories, one being macro minerals, while the other one being our trace minerals. And so just by kind of obvious, by just the way that that's written, one we require in larger amounts, so our macro minerals, in comparison to our trace minerals that we require in very, very tiny doses, something like chromium, let's say. Now, we hear a lot, or I guess we read a lot in social media and different types of blog posts of how you might be deficient in specific vitamins, but mineral deficiencies are actually very common, if not more common than vitamin deficiencies, because once again, we can't make minerals in the body. There are less products on the market that are enriched with minerals, albeit that's not the best source of them in the first place. But when it comes to eating, let's say, processed foods, you will not find a lot of prepackaged foods that are enriched with minerals. And the other reason why mineral deficiencies tend to be more common is that we actually require stomach acid to absorb them. So that means proper digestion. So if we're not eating quality macronutrients, if we're not taking care of our gut health, we will not be able to actually digest and absorb these minerals. And last but not least, another key reason why we have seen more deficiencies in minerals is because of modern farming methods and food processing. So these types of minerals are lost when we are practicing, row farming or big box farming, which tends to be happening more and more. So when it comes to the minerals, there are so many minerals out there that we could talk about, but we'll talk tonight about two at the end of our webinar tonight that are commonly deficient in North America. So how much of each of these micronutrients do I need? This is a question I get asked a lot. How am I supposed to count my micronutrients? I know how to count my macronutrients because I can see that on my plate. I can count how much of my protein I'm eating, how many grams of fat, how many grams of carbohydrates, but how am I supposed to determine my levels of micronutrients? First and foremost, using that kind of plate technique that I just mentioned, looking to not only count your macros, but to start to count your micros by looking at colors is a great first step. Second, you can start to determine what foods you see on your plate on a regular basis. If you are constantly eating green beans and chicken and rice, you're probably not going to be getting an array of those micronutrients. While yes, you are getting your macros, you're missing out on key micros. So having a look at the content of foods is really important, right? So as I mentioned, spinach, there's magnesium, there's vitamin C, there's a little bit of iron in there too. And starting to do your research on your vegetables and fruits and seeing what's in there is a great second step. When it comes to the overall picture of the RDAs, the basically guidelines that are set out by the government on how much of a specific micronutrient we need, those data points or those suggested numbers are based on general population as a minimum in order for a healthy person to function. And it's based on about 90 to 95% of the healthy population given their age. So if you were to look on Canada's website, you could go to the RDA and check to see how much of each nutrient you need at different stages of life. This is going to be very much dependent on, let's say, if you're a teenager or a pregnant woman or an elderly person, you will need different levels of these micronutrients. But once again, this list is based on how much you need to function, right? How much you need to get out of bed in the morning, go to work and come home. But if you are an athlete, or if you are someone eating a very particular diet, or if you've been diagnosed with a specific illness, or let's say you have problems with digestion, you actually might need more of a specific micronutrient. And that's where the idea of supplementing with these micros can come in. When it comes to supplementing versus dietary micronutrients, there can be a difference in their form, meaning that they could be bound to another constituent for easier digestion, or we could say we could find a cheaper vitamin on the shelf that's actually been bound to the cheapest form, meaning that the company is not going to have to pay as much to have an active form, but the person who is buying this low quality supplement might not actually get enough of the nutrient digested and assimilated, right? So the way that we find vitamins and minerals in nature is typically an easier way for us to digest them and to assimilate them. But once again, does everyone need to supplement? No. If you are eating a variety of whole foods, chances are you probably don't need to take a supplement regime or go through a supplement protocol on a regular basis. However, if you are in a time of your life when you're in a period of very high stress, you're going through illness, or you're looking to prevent a specific condition, if you are pre or post injury or surgery, if you have a specific metabolic condition, or if you are adhering to a specific diet, chances are you actually might need to supplement with these micronutrients in a pill form or a powdered form. So we can talk at length about supplementation, but just to give you guys an idea of where you could find supplements that are going to be useful, having a look at or having a chance to go into a supplement shop or a health food store and speaking with a representative can be a great first step to understand the difference between a bottom line supplement of a micronutrient or a top of the line supplement. There is a great difference there in what you can actually absorb, because remember, these guys, while they are very useful at helping us digest and assimilate, they also need to be in a form that our body can understand and read, which is very interesting. So more on that maybe in another lecture. So when it comes to kind of first steps in looking at what micronutrients might be kind of at the top of your list to start looking at, let's look at magnesium, B12, zinc, and iron. So there are many more out there in terms of deficiencies or potentials for deficiencies, but these guys here are going to be quite prominent in North America. Magnesium is going to be considered kind of nature's natural muscle relaxant. It's known for helping to reduce high blood pressure. It's very important to metabolism in general, because it's actually interesting that most molecules of ATP, remember that that's going to be our energy currency, are actually bound to magnesium. So very important to our metabolic functioning. And it can be used in terms of like a healthy treatment program for PMS or muscle cramps, insomnia, and restless leg syndrome, because its actual mechanism is to help relax muscles. It is considered to be one of our electrolytes as well. So deficiency is fairly common in North America because we lose a lot of it to processing. And when we are in times of high stress, we tend to burn through our levels of magnesium quite quickly. Or when we're eating poor quality foods, like excessive sugar intake, alcohol intake, and caffeine intake. That can actually burn through our stores of magnesium, which can result in deficiency. When it comes to food sourcing, we're looking at things like dark chocolate, which is why some women will crave dark chocolate around that time of the month. Chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is going to be kind of like what we call plant blood. It's what makes up kind of like that dark green component of plants. And the same way that in humans, we have our red blood cells with iron in the middle, plants have that kind of same structure, but with magnesium in the middle. You can also find it in spinach and Swiss chard and other dark leafy greens. So if that is going to be something that kind of catches your eye and thinking, oh, well, I have restless leg syndrome or I have, painful PMS, that could be something to start looking into in terms of working with magnesium, boosting the amount of magnesium-friendly foods that you have, and maybe looking at supplementation if necessary. Next up, we have B12, and B12 is also known as cobalamin. So this is also known as the energy vitamin. When it comes to why we tend to be deficient in B12, it's because we actually lose we're not able to absorb B12 unless we have adequate digestion or proper digestion going on. It's going to be integral for growth and the protection of the nervous system, and it plays a key role in protein synthesis. So if you're trying to, let's say, put on some mass and you're going to the gym on a more regular basis, if you actually don't have adequate digestion, you won't be able to absorb your B12 and aid your body in creating new muscles in the first place. So it's known as the anti-fatigue vitamin. Deficiency is common though, because it requires its own specific enzyme in the digestive system to actually be absorbed and used in the body. So once again, if we're, let's say, eating a subpar diet or we're under stress on a regular basis, chances are you're probably not absorbing the B12 that you could be finding in your food. And the other reason why we might be deficient in B12 is because it's found in animal sources. There are very few sources of plant-based B12. So if you are adhering to a plant-based diet, chances are you're not getting enough B12. So ways that we can start to work around that is if someone is eating meat, you're going to find this in meat sources, in clams, eggs, fish, kidney, mackerel, things like that. Plant-based sources, you'll find it in kelp and kombu and brewer's yeast if it's in its active form. But working on helping your digestion or going to see, let's say, a naturopath or nutritionist to boost your B12 or maybe even get a B12 shot is your best bet when it comes to boosting your levels of B12. When it comes to zinc, zinc is going to be quite a common micronutrient deficiency. It's also going to be a trace mineral and it's water soluble. So we can lose this in processing as well. Interesting facts about zinc, it plays many different important roles in the body. So it's going to be, it has to be present in our pancreas to actually secrete insulin, so helping with insulin sensitivity. So for people who are having a hard time losing weight, they might actually not have enough zinc in the body to help produce and create and release insulin. It's also an antioxidant. It's part of a kind of chain of enzymes that have antioxidant effects. And it's very important for wound healing and the production of our stomach acid. So if anyone's ever taken a zinc lozenge on an empty stomach and felt that kind of upset gut feeling, that kind of has to do with the effects that zinc has on stomach acid. And it's also helpful for men's health. So when it comes to why we can be deficient in zinc, the absorption of zinc can vary because even though it plays a very important role in the creation of our stomach acid, so that our digestive juices, it actually requires high amounts of good stomach acid to be absorbed in the first place. So that means that if we're under stress, when we're not creating as much stomach acid, we might not actually be able to absorb our zinc from our diet. It also can be difficult to absorb if we don't have any protein. So if you're eating a lower protein diet, chances are you might not be getting enough zinc, or you might not be absorbing the zinc that you're even intaking into your diet in the first place. When it comes to food sources of zinc, oysters are definitely the highest source of zinc, red meats, egg yolks, whole grains. We can also find some zinc in as well, and beans and cashews. But for anyone who's following a plant-based protocol as well, zinc tends to be better absorbed from animal sources. We have still not determined why that is, but it just seems to be better absorbed in an animal-based form. So be mindful for anyone following a plant-based protocol, you might not be absorbing enough zinc. And finally, of our top micronutrient deficiencies, iron can also be the top of this list as well. So when it comes to iron, we know that iron plays a key role, obviously, in the creation of our red blood cells, but we can also find that it's going to be important for many other metabolic functions in the body. Now, when it comes to deficiencies, the two main factors here for a deficiency would be if you were one, a woman of reproductive age, and two, if you are following a plant-based approach. And three, if you are not eating a diet that would allow for good gut bacteria, because once again, to absorb your iron, you actually do need good gut bacteria or good gut health. So when it comes to iron and finding it in food sources, we find two different forms of iron. We find a plant-based form, which is called non-heme, and then we have an animal-based form, which is called heme iron. And once again, too, unfortunately, it does seem to be better absorbed from a heme source of iron, so an animal-based form. So that's coming from meat, that's coming from eggs, not much from eggs, pardon me, liver, anything that's going to be more so animal-based will have higher amounts of iron in comparison to our plant-based sources, which are going to be found in things like dark leafy greens and other sources there. Now, when it comes to boosting absorption of iron, side note, one should never start supplementing with iron unless you are very well aware that there is a deficiency, because an excess of iron can be quite dangerous. But for those people who are well aware that they have low iron or are noticing that they have, let's say, they feel exhausted, low energy, that could be either B12 or iron. So going to a doctor and having those levels checked is a good place to start. But when it comes to boosting iron, if we're looking at a plant-based approach, making sure that you're taking your iron-based foods with a little bit of vitamin C can be very useful. So that could be vitamin C from a natural source. Let's say you can add in like a slice of orange, things like that. Or you can also take a vitamin C tablet when you are either taking your supplemental iron or eating your non-heme based iron foods. So we do have more micronutrients obviously out there, but these are the top ones that I figured that we could start to share with you guys now. These are easy to address, easy to work with, and you can find an abundance of these foods. Chances are maybe already on your plate. When it comes to kind of having a last look at what we spoke about tonight, I really want to hit home a couple of points. First and foremost, I think we've gone past the age of feeling that counting your macros is enough. That's going to get you to level 1. That's going to get you to the point where you're starting to look at what's on your plate and you can kind of have a little bit more control about looking at what's coming in versus what should be there, what shouldn't. But if we're really looking at optimum performance, if we're really looking at wellness, if we're really looking at reaching those goals, those gains or loss or whatever it is that you're looking for, we really need to focus on the micros. And this is where nutrition comes into play and understanding more about nutrition. So last step I will leave for you guys is, please, if you are currently counting your macros or looking or working with clients that are, get them to take that next step and start to count their micros by challenging themselves to find a couple of different colors on their plate. I know that sounds like something that you might have been told as a kid, that you were supposed to eat the rainbow, but there's a reason for that, because that rainbow of colors is a sign of the antioxidants and vitamin and mineral content that's in that food. So challenge yourself with your clients to look for 1 to 2 colors minimum on their plate. And then challenge yourself to know a little bit more about each of these vitamins and minerals, how they work in the body, and what they do for us in general, and where to find them in food. And third, I know this wasn't on the slides, but start to think about digestion. And I know that I'm probably biased because I'm a nutritionist, but have a look at, if you are feeling bloated and gassy after meals, if you do suffer from indigestion or heartburn, those are all signs that your digestive system is not working accordingly. And that can mean that you might not even be absorbing the micronutrients that you are eating on a daily basis. So if this was interesting for you guys and you felt like this was maybe an eye-opener or really helped you to learn a little bit more about those micronutrients and maybe even inspired you to maybe, look at your plate tonight or tomorrow, then you might want to check out InfoFit's new course. So we've created a course called the Certified Sports Performance and Fitness Nutrition Specialist Program, where we walk you through a lot of what we were talking about tonight. We cover the vitamins and minerals, we cover energy systems, we cover the physiological kind of understanding of the hormonal system, as well as specific conditions and understanding how to work with clients with specific conditions. And then we tie that all together to really help create specific plans and protocols for your clients, dietary plans and protocols according to their needs. Because we're now learning more and more that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. We have to take every single client and really work with them as an individual. And so if you felt like this course was interesting, please have a look at infofit.ca to learn more about this certification program. I am the teacher for this course coming up soon. So if you guys would like to learn more or like to ask any questions, now would be the time. And when it comes to tonight's talk, for listening tonight, we are very happy to send you guys a little promo. So I'm just going to pop that in the chat box and you guys can learn more about the offer that we're able to give you for this time around. So please take the time to have a look there and see if maybe that would be something that you're interested in. Do you have any questions about tonight's lecture? I would be so happy to answer any questions that you guys might have on micronutrients. If you have any questions, please feel free to pop those in the question box. Yeah, so someone asked about B12. Someone asked if oral B12 is effective. Now, when it comes to absorption, absorption is going to play a key role here in how we're going to absorb and assimilate. Remember, it's not enough just to eat the food that we're eating. Fun fact about minerals is that we actually don't absorb 100% of the minerals that are in our food. It's typically around like 18 to 35% of the mineral content of our broccoli, let's say. So the same thing goes for B12, because B12 requires that very specific enzyme called intrinsic factor. If we do not have enough hydrochloric acid present, we will not activate intrinsic factor. And intrinsic factor is what actually guides B12 into the small intestine to be absorbed and used. So to answer the question about if oral B12 is effective, if you are taking a pill form of B12, you might not be absorbing all of it or any of it at all. Whereas if you're taking a sublingual B12, that can be more effective because that's going to bypass the digestive system and be absorbed directly into the bloodstream, so long as you're taking it directly under your tongue. So while oral B12, like the drops, can be quite tasty, the goal is to actually have it under your tongue and hold it there until it's absorbed into the bloodstream. That would be kind of step number 2. So gold standard for B12 supplementation would be an injection, and then the sublingual B12 will be second best. And the same thing goes for our fat-soluble vitamins. Finding vitamin D3 in a pill form is going to be less effective than vitamin D3 in a fat, like a capsule or like a drop form, because it actually requires that fat to help it pull itself through the body. Somebody mentioned, you mentioned vitamin C, taking vitamin C with non-heme iron. Does it help absorb heme iron? Yes, it does. So it will actually increase absorption of heme iron as well. And it can also be done when you are working, let's say, with digestive enzymes. So if you're taking it with something that has hydrochloric acid as part of like a digestive enzyme blend, you can take that at the same time as you're taking your iron right before your meal to help increase digestion, because that hydrochloric acid can also help to pull the iron into the system. Somebody asked how often you should do B12 injections. That's going to very much depend on the individual, and that's going to be something that you would probably want to get checked, because B12 is an interesting water-soluble vitamin. In comparison to the others that we lose quite quickly on a daily basis, B12 could actually be stored in the system for up to 2 years, which is why a lot of people who will switch from a plant-based diet or from a regular, let's say, animal approach to a plant-based diet can kind of not notice their stores of B12 drop off for quite some time, up to a year to 2 years. So when it comes to boosting those levels back up right away, you would probably want to do some B12 injections if you don't have enough B12. That's something you can get tested by a naturopath or by an allopathic physician as well. And then that can be monitored. You can also do this just by gut feel of kind of feeling when you feel more energized. But once again, too, that can just be a waste of those injections. So working with a physician for that can be a great place to start if you are not aware that you don't have enough B12. So very much dependent on the individual. Does anyone else have any questions about vitamins or minerals? Oh yeah, great question. Somebody asked, what do you mean by big box farming? So I mean that style of farming where you see lots of rows of vegetables or whatever type of plant that they're growing and not much else, right? That's not a natural way of growing food. I know that we've become so accustomed to that, But that type of big box, like large production, large volume farming really means that we are trying to produce as much as possible, right? Dollars are on the line. And what that means is that that soil is being depleted of the minerals that are there, because we're using fake fertilizers, we're using specific types of watering methods that are really not replenishing the soil. So those minerals, those natural mineral deposits, right? Because remember, minerals are inorganic, they're just found around the world. We're going to deplete the stores in our soil that we're farming, and then funny enough, our vegetables aren't going to have the same mineral content. And then that means we're not going to have the same mineral content. If you want to do yourself a fun favor, have a Google search or do a quick search on the internet for what a plant looks like when it's deficient in magnesium. You'll see that even a plant will come up with specific kind of signs and symptoms when it's deficient in something. It might have red spots, or it might have black or brown patches. And those can be signs of a mineral deficiency in a plant, because once again, they need it too. So big box farming is really just that term for conventional mass production farming, where the end or bottom line is really how much money that company is making or how much they can produce, instead of focusing on the quality of that food. So to kind of finish up on that, when it comes to looking at food sources of micronutrients, first goal would be to reduce the amount of, processed food that we're eating. The less packaged food that we're eating, the better. Second would be to look at those macronutrients and then not just tick off the boxes of I have protein, carbs, and fats, but really look at the quality, right? Looking at where those products came from. Are they coming from a bag, or did you grow them, or did you get them from a farmer's market, or did you get them from a natural source? And then third, looking at colors, checking off the boxes to see if you have different types of colors on your plate, different types of vegetables and fruits on a daily basis, to really hone in on the fact that those micronutrients are going to be hiding in plain sight, thanks to those colors that are kind of giving us those hints. And the more that you know there, the more empowered you'll feel to make those decisions. And while you might not feel the difference overnight, your body will thank you in the long run, because remember, those micronutrients really are the stage hands. They're the little guys behind the stage on our play that are turning on the lights, they're opening and closing the curtains, while our protein, carbs, and fats are kind of the stars of the show. They're the ones that make everything run. Somebody asked, what does bloating indicate and how do we address it? Bloating can indicate so many different things, and to get to the root cause of that really requires some work, looking to see what types of foods might be causing it, or if it's just general upset and then maybe starting to a specific digestive protocol. But really, first and foremost, bloating and that kind of uncomfortable feeling is a sign that something in your gut isn't digesting properly. And so that's creating gas. And that can be from your gut bacteria. Remember, we have quote unquote good and bad gut bacteria. And what can happen is that they're eating, let's say, the wrong things, they can create gas. And that gas can be a sign that our, let's say, quote unquote bad gut bacteria are getting more of the foods they like. So first thing to kind of cut out would be the refined foods in general, and then starting to look at things like gluten, dairy. Those are the best places to start. But first would be to cut out the refined things, refined sugars, refined carbohydrates, packaged foods, and see if that changes it. But addressing it would very much be an individual protocol in terms of a full gut healing plan, but it really is a sign that something's not quite right. Somebody asked a question, how effective is vegan protein powder? So this is going to depend on what vegan protein powder you're looking at, because when it comes to amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins, right? There are many amino acids, and there are, depending on who you ask, 8 to 10 that are essential. And when it comes to animal-based sources of protein, they are going to be a complete source of protein in the sense that they contain all of our essential amino acids. Whereas vegan protein sources, save for a couple of them, are not going to have all of the amino acids present or in high enough numbers to be considered complete. So some vegan protein powders might just be one specific food. Let's say it's pumpkin proteins, pumpkin seed protein. It might not have all of the amino acids present. I do believe tyrosine is the one that's low in pumpkin seed protein. So by only eating that one type of vegan protein on a daily basis, you would be missing out on a couple of specific amino acids. So over time, this can result in an amino acid deficiency because they all play different roles there. That's also a whole other topic too. But when it comes to the effectiveness of vegan protein powder, look to see on the back what the list of amino acids is. So it should kind of show you a profile of the amino acids to help you get an idea of if you are getting a complete kind of scoop or a complete source of those amino acids, depending on the variety that they're using. There are some great brands that do a blend of specific or of different types of plant-based protein sources to ensure that you are actually getting enough of each amino acid. Other things to take note of there is that some people have a very hard time digesting pea protein, so finding other sources could be useful. And then really just listening to your gut. I know that sounds cliche, but listening to see if your gut is digesting and absorbing that as well. Oh, that's a great question. Does drinking 7 glasses of water dilute the stomach acid and thus mineral uptake? I really hope you're not drinking 7 glasses of water right before your meal. But if you're drinking water throughout the day, that's fine. If you're drinking, let's say, 3 glasses of water right before your meal, you are diluting your stomach acid. And so this is going to dilute absolutely or impede uptake of absolutely everything. So this is going to reduce the effectiveness of your stomach acid because it's now been diluted. It's the same way that if you were going to take some vinegar and then, pour water into it, you've now diluted that vinegar. And while that might be great for cleaning your windows now, it's not going to be as strong or as potent as it was when it was just the vinegar. So drinking 7 glasses of water throughout the day, totally fine. Great is a first minimum. A lot of people don't even drink that. But when it comes to drinking a couple glasses of water before a meal, if you're drinking 3 to 4 pints of water, that would be something that you might want to address. Keeping your stomach acid concentrated before a meal is a great place to start if you are noticing that you have some digestive issues. I'm not saying don't drink any water around a meal because we do want to make sure that food comes down, but saving the water for between meals is a better idea. Great question. Thank you for that. Any other questions? Perfect. Well, if that is our last question, then you can feel free to enjoy the rest of your evening. If you have any further questions that come up, this course might be the course for you because all the questions you guys had asked are questions that we cover in this class. These would be questions that you would then be able to answer and share with your clients and go forward and create new protocols for them with. So if you are interested, please feel free to visit infofit.ca for more information. And I hope to hear from you all soon. Thanks and have a great evening.